A plane plummets out of the sky.
These
A
are some purple
speedrunner inexplicably jumps to a higher platform.
What the? What the?
And an election recount is triggered. All because of the same invisible phenomenon that permeates the universe. On May 18th, 2003, voters in Belgium went to the
Perhaps
polls.
wonder.
In many regions, voting was
Oh, I
done
see
on a
this.
computer, something the Belgians had been experimenting with for over a decade. But the system had a backup. Each voter would insert a magnetic card into the machine and make their selection on screen. Their vote was saved both to the computer and the magnetic card, which they dropped into a box for redundancy. Late that night, as the votes were being tabulated, one of the election officials detected a problem with the results from Schaerbeek, a municipality in central Brussels. Maria Vindevogel, a little-known candidate with her own party, received more votes than was mathematically possible.
Oh.
They knew this because of the way the preferential voting system works.
Congrats,
So
Maria.
they took out the magnetic cards and started a recount. One by one, they fed each of them through the machines again.
These are some
After several hours, the
Filipino
recount
and
was
red.
complete. The vote totals for every candidate
True
were
red.
exactly the same as before, except for Maria Vindevogel.
Oh man,
In her
she really
case,
fell
the
off.
recounted number of votes was less than the original by 4,096.
Damn.
So what went wrong? How had her original tally been inflated by over 4,000 votes? Computer experts were brought in to run extensive tests on the software. They combed through the code but could find no bugs. They got the computer that had made the initial erroneous tally and tested the hardware
Is there some
again
jaded?
and again, but they could not replicate the error.
Lol,
Everything about the
trolled by
hardware
a
seemed to be in
neutrino.
perfect working order.
You prank
This left
nerds.
only one possible explanation, and it is seriously weird.
Reptilians.
The clue comes from the excess number of votes Vindevogel received, 4,096. Computers work using binary, strings of zeros and ones, each corresponding to a power of 2. So somewhere inside the computer tabulating all the votes was a string of bits representing the number of votes Maria received. It started the day all zeros, and then as each vote for her came in, it would increment by 1. Physically, this is done by turning on a transistor for 1 and turning it off for 0. What's remarkable about the number 4096 is that it is
Netstream?
exactly a power of 2. 2 to the power
Well,
of 12.
not yet, Wonder. I'm
That is
in this
the
one,
13th bit.
but I'm not
So
a big meme
for
guy.
Maria Vindevogel to receive an extra 4,096 votes, only one thing needed to happen. The 13th bit had to flip from a 0 to a 1. But why would that happen? Computers work precisely because bits don't flip unless we want them to. Or do they?
Oh
Looking into the
shit!
problem,
God was
Belgian
playing a
investigators found
joke.
reports of similar issues from big computer companies starting in the 1970s. In 1978, Intel reported some strange errors popping up in their 16 kilobit dynamic random access memory, or DRAM. Ones would spontaneously flip to zeros with no apparent cause. The problem turned out to be the ceramic packaging the chip was encased in. With the demand for semiconductor packaging skyrocketing in the 1970s, a new manufacturing plant was constructed on the Green River in Colorado. Unfortunately, this site happened to be just downstream of an old uranium mill.
Oh,
Radioactive
classic.
atoms made their way into the river and then into the ceramic packaging for Intel's microchips. Intel scientists investigating the problem found that even
Laser
trace
resub
amounts
Craven.
of uranium and thorium in the ceramic were sufficient to cause problems.
Wow.
In their DRAM,
It's
memory
Epstein's
was stored as
ghost.
the presence
Yeah, that's
or
probably what it
absence
was.
of electrons in a semiconductor well. The alpha particles emitted by uranium and thorium were energetic and ionizing enough to create electron hole pairs in the silicon. If an alpha particle struck in just the right place, it could create a large number of free charge carriers, causing electrons to accumulate in the well, flipping a 1 to a 0. This is known as a single event upset.
That's pretty
a type
cool.
of soft error. The error is soft because the device hasn't been damaged. The bit has changed, but you could erase it and rewrite it with no problems. Investigators exposed the chips to alpha emitters with different levels of activity.
They should have done
And just as you'd
gamma
expect,
emitters.
They found
Create
the
the
number of
Hulk.
bit flips directly correlated with the number of alpha particles the chip had been exposed to. The reason this problem was identified in the 1970s was because chip components had been miniaturized to the point where a single alpha particle could produce enough charge to flip a bit. Immediately, these findings attracted a lot of attention. Before the paper was published, it was widely circulated in the industry, and as a result, chip manufacturers were a lot more careful to avoid radioactive materials when producing their microchips.
This is about Mario. It's all the same
Therefore,
thing.
the bit flip that gave Maria Vindevogel 4,096 extra votes wasn't caused by natural radioactivity in the computer. So where did it come from?
The sun.
After Henri Becquerel discovered radioactivity with uranium in 1896, scientists sought a way to measure it. How radioactive were different materials? And one way to do this is with a gold leaf electrometer. When it's charged, the leaf is repelled, and you can measure the amount of charge by the angle of the leaf. Now, if ionizing radiation enters the chamber, it rips electrons off air molecules, creating positive and negative charges. Opposite charges are attracted to the leaf, discharging it over time. The higher the level of ionizing radiation, the faster the device discharges. In 1910, Theodore Wolff took his electrometer to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Since radioactivity was found in the soil, Since radioactivity was found in the soil and rocks of Earth, he expected that 300 meters up, the radiation would be just a few % of the ground radiation. Instead, he found only a slight decrease. In 1911, Austrian physicist Victor Hess decided to take this experiment further.
Hard to believe these guys were so smart.
Electroscopes into the
They didn't
basket
even
of a
have the
hydrogen
internet.
balloon. In his
Or
first two
Reddit.
flights, he observed the same thing as Wolf. Up to an altitude of 1,100 meters, both trips revealed no fundamental change in radiation compared to the values observed on the ground. But the next year, he conducted 7 balloon flights up to an altitude of 5,200 meters. And here, he discovered something remarkable. While there was an initial drop in radiation for the first several hundred meters, above 1 kilometer or so, the level increased with increasing altitude. At his maximum height, the level of radiation was several times greater than it was on the ground.
And
the
whack
radiation
DeMarco. Alright, hold on. I need to go say goodnight to Tiana real quick. I'll be right back. I'm fucking back. Oh.
Appeared to be coming
Thank you for the tier 1 Dawson.
But from the sky. Hess scheduled one of his balloon flights during a solar eclipse, and as the moon passed in front of the sun, he carefully watched his instruments. But the readings were unaffected. Even with the sun half covered, the level of radiation was the same. Since no influence of the eclipse on the penetrating radiation was noted, we conclude that even if a part of the radiation should be of cosmic origin, it hardly emanates from the sun.
How did you get a
Victor
PS5?
Hess
I bought it from a
discovered
scalper.
Cosmic rays,
Thanks for some Baileys
high-energy
and stuff.
radiation from space.
Wouldn't recommend doing that.
But what were these rays exactly, and where were they coming from? Well, today we know they aren't electromagnetic rays, as many suspected, but particles. Around 90% are protons, 9% are helium nuclei, and 1% are heavier nuclei. Some of them are from the sun, but they have comparatively low energy. High-energy cosmic rays, moving very close to the speed of light, come from exploding stars, supernovae, in our own galaxy and in others. And the highest energy particles are thought to come from black holes, including the supermassive black holes at the centers of galaxies. But it's hard to pin down exactly where cosmic rays come from because, as charged particles, they're deflected by magnetic fields in space. So they can wind their way through the universe for billions of years. A cosmic ray detected on October 15th, 1991, had an energy of 51 joules. That is a single subatomic particle with the energy of a baseball going 100 kilometers per hour. For obvious reasons, it was dubbed the OMG particle.
Thanks to the resub Innocence.
Primary cosmic rays like these...
Hey, wait. The OMG particle, is that, that's what they use to, like, prove alien... Like, some people talk about that as, like, proof aliens communicated with us? Or are those two separate things? Because I remember for a lot of like UFO conspiracy theorists, they always talking about the wow signal, where they thought they had gotten a response back from space. These aren't related. Okay. Okay.
Get down to Earth's surface. Instead, they collide with air molecules around 25 kilometers above the ground and create new particles, like pions. These collide and decay into other particles, like neutrons, protons, muons, electrons, positrons, and photons.
Positron is a
which in turn
character
collide with
from
other
City
air
of Heroes.
molecules in one long cascade. So from a single primary cosmic ray comes a shower of particles streaming towards the Earth. It is one of these particles that investigators suspect struck a transistor in a computer in Belgium, flipping the 13th bit from a 0 to a 1 and giving Maria Vindevogel 4,096 extra votes.
Maria needs to say
But
thank you to that
how often
supernova.
do things like this happen?
Write a
In
thank you
1911,
card.
Charles Wilson made it possible to see the cosmic rays all around us when he perfected his cloud chamber, an enclosure with supersaturated water or alcohol vapor. When a cosmic ray passes through the chamber, it ionizes the gas, causing vapor to condense into tiny droplets on the ions, revealing the path of the particle. Alpha particles, helium nuclei,
It's pretty
leave
fucking cool.
short, thick tracks, while beta particles, electrons, leave long, skinny trails. In 1932, Carl Anderson identified a trail that looked like it was made by an electron, but in the applied magnetic field, it curved in the wrong direction, implying it had a positive charge. Anderson had found the anti-electron, or positron.
Oh.
It was the first confirmed sighting of antimatter. 4 years later, also using a cloud chamber, he discovered the muon, again in cosmic rays. For his discovery of the positron, Anderson was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1936. He shared the prize with Victor Hess, the man who discovered cosmic rays in the first place. The man who discovered cosmic rays in the first place, invisible particles that affect our lives in ways most of us are oblivious to. This is possibly the rarest thing to ever happen in a video game. In 2013, user Dota Teabag was speedrunning Super Mario 64 on the console. In the level TikTok Clock,
I'm glad his
he
name's
suddenly
Dota Teabag.
upwarps onto a higher platform.
What the?
Did you get invisible walls?
What?
Please say you got invisible.
No, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen, though.
The move shaves off a few seconds, and it seems like a newly discovered glitch in the game that could give speedrunners an edge. User PanandCook12 put out a $1,000 bounty for anyone who could replicate the upwarp. But so far, after 6 years, no one has been able to. The best explanation anyone can come up with is that a cosmic ray caused the glitch. It's been shown that a single bit flip in the first byte of Mario's height coordinate could have caused the effect. On the main level, the byte was 11000101, but if you flip the last 1 to a 0, it changes his vertical position. And just by chance, this new height coincides with the higher floor.
That's so
PanandCook12
fucking cool.
wrote a script to manually flip the bit at the right moment and was able to achieve the same upwarp. This is a particularly visible bit flip, but the truth is, cosmic rays are triggering bit flips all the time.
An upset there
Yeah, I know,
can
Panan.
alter the function
I'm familiar
of
with this
these
content.
devices, and we call that a single event functional interrupt. So an entire process can hang. So a blue screen of death that you get might actually have been a neutron or whatnot.
When people see the blue screen of death, could that be caused by a cosmic ray?
Absolutely.
These days, there are a number of ways computer chips are made resilient in the face of bit flips, like error correction code or ECC
Thanks, Brian
memory.
Murphy.
But you can't totally prevent bit flips from happening. In 1996, IBM estimated that for each 256 megabytes of RAM, one bit flip occurs per month. And the main culprit seems to be neutrons created in the shower of particles from cosmic rays. Starting in 2009, Toyota recalled millions of vehicles due to the problem of unintended acceleration.
Time to get serious. I'm putting the glasses
When
on.
fast they were driving at about
How do we
70,
stop these
He
particles?
said that the car was continuing to
Let
accelerate.
me think on it.
And he couldn't bring it to a
What
stop.
if we
Many
delete
speculated
space?
that cosmic ray
and just
induced
keep
bit
Earth
flips in
alive?
the electronic control system were the cause. So much so that NASA was called in to help with the investigation. But it turns out cosmic rays were probably not the culprit. NASA identified as the main causes sticky accelerator pedals, poorly fitted floor
Thanks to
mats,
resub Ultra
and
Simp.
most commonly, drivers pushing on the accelerator thinking it was the brake.
That's so cute. Thanks,
But
Dawson.
cosmic
Wonder.
rays have caused crashes of supercomputers, especially at higher elevations. Los Alamos National Labs, located
Is Tier 1
2,200
Johnny?
meters above sea level, is constantly dealing with neutron-induced supercomputer crashes. So the software autosaves frequently, and neutron detectors have been installed
Thanks for some
throughout the
Catboy.
facility. If you go even higher, like climbing up to cruising altitude in a plane, you can see the radiation from cosmic rays increasing on a Geiger counter.
To 0.5 microsieverts per hour at 18,000 feet, up to 1 microsievert per hour.
So they
at
just fucking
23,000
wander
feet,
on this
over
planet
2
willy-nilly
microsieverts
and
per
they
hour
don't
at
even fucking
33,000
pay
feet,
for it.
and over 3 microsieverts per
There's
hour
no
at
toll
higher
system
altitudes
set up?
and towards the poles.
At cruising altitude, this
Interesting.
increases the chance of a single event upset by 10 to 30 times. This isn't critical if it happens in your laptop, but what if it occurs in the flight computer? On October
this is gonna give me
7th,
another thing to worry
2008,
about while
an Airbus
flying.
A330 took off from
Even though I just
Singapore
never fly.
to Perth. Just over 3 hours into the flight, the plane suddenly pitched down, diving 200 meters
Yep.
in 20 seconds.
More proof why I
Inside
don't
the
go on
plane,
planes.
Everyone experienced negative 0.8 Gs of acceleration. It would have felt like the plane had flipped over.
Thanks to Prime Chaos.
G-force was enough, even with our 3-point harness, to lift us both out of the seat and push us forward as well.
Minutes later, the plane dropped another 120 meters.
Jesus, those particles
119
are
people
angry.
on board were injured, many from bumping their heads into the ceiling. So the pilots decided to make an emergency landing in Learmonth. In the investigation that followed, the fault seemed to occur with the first Air Data Inertial Reference Unit, or ADIRU for short. This computer supplies critical data like airspeed, angle of attack, and altitude. The way it supplies each of these pieces of information is in a 32-bit binary word. The first 8 bits identify the type of information, and bits 11 to 29 encode the actual data. What seems to have
Those are some
happened is that
gear
a
field.
bit flip in the first 8 bits meant altitude information was mislabeled as angle of attack information. Inside the cockpit, alarms went on for overspeed and stall simultaneously, something that should be impossible. But the plane nosed down sharply to correct what it thought
Thanks to
was
Reach of
a
Independence
stall,
and the 5 gift
throwing
subs large
passengers
anime
and
titty.
crew into the
Thanks,
ceiling.
titty.
Investigators looked into software bugs, software corruption, a hardware fail, physical environment factors, and electromagnetic interference. But each of these possibilities was found to be unlikely based on multiple sources of evidence. The other potential triggering event was a single event effect resulting from a high-energy atmospheric particle striking one of the integrated circuits within the CPU module. One of the challenges with single-event upsets is that they are soft errors. They don't leave a trace. But interestingly, the Airbus A330 was built in 1992, when there were no specific regulatory or aircraft manufacturer requirements for airborne systems to be resilient to single-event effects. With the space shuttle, redundancy was built in from the start. For navigation and control, there were 4 computers simultaneously running identical software. If one computer had a soft error, the other 3 would overrule it. And using this setup, they could also track the frequency of bit flips. On one 5-day mission, STS-48, there were 161
Holy shit.
separate bit flips.
That's a lot.
Above the atmosphere, cosmic rays are
Thanks
so
for resub,
energetic,
Miguel.
sometimes you can even see them.
Once in a while, you have your eyes closed and you're not asleep yet. And if you wait a little while, you occasionally will see a flash of light. And we think it is heavy particles or individual bursts of energy coming from radiation
Is your
that are either
sensational?
going through the eyeball itself or going through the optic nerve. And they the way that your body registers radiation going through it is amazingly enough by showing you a little flash in one of your eyes, just to remind you that you are subject to the radiation of not only our sun, but every star of the universe that is.
Does that happen? I've never had that happen.
I picture back to the first astronauts who must have closed their eyes and seen that radiation and going, I'm not going to tell anybody about this because no one's told me about it. I'm not talking. And I can just imagine the first two guys that said, hey, sometimes I see flashes of light. Do you see flashes of light? And then it's, oh, we all see flashes of light. Oh, okay. Well, that's all right then.
For missions to
That
other
guy's so
planets,
likable.
protecting electronics is critical.
If a single bit of information controls a critical function on your spacecraft, let's say your thrusters, and that goes from a 1 to a 0, from a on to off, or vice versa, you could lose the mission.
That's why the computer on the Perseverance rover that just landed on Mars is 20 years old. It's a PowerPC launched in 2001 with only 256 megabytes of RAM and 2 gigabytes of flash storage.
Resub Pato
But
and
it is radiation hardened,
Nashti.
meaning the design, materials, circuits, and software are built to withstand 40 times the radiation of an ordinary computer. It's been used on over a dozen space missions going back to 2005.
In fact, when we first started doing the PowerPC testing years ago, the way we did it, we just simply stuck an operating system processor in a beamline where we generate these particles on the planet and look for blue screens of death. You can kind of figure out what's going wrong and try to undo that so you don't get to the blue screen of death, because a spacecraft that gets into that mode is basically unrecoverable.
As the Voyager 1 spacecraft departed the solar system, one of the ways we could tell was by an increase in the flux of cosmic rays it experienced. Although on Earth the particles streaming from the sun and the solar wind are a source of radiation, further out, these same particles maintain a protective bubble, the heliosphere. It helps deflect and slow cosmic rays from interstellar space, protecting the solar system from ionizing radiation. But the sun has an 11-year activity cycle, so this protection fluctuates. The flux of cosmic rays on Earth is much lower when the sun is active than when it's dormant. In the history of our planet, cosmic rays may have played an even larger role, flipping bits not in electronics, but in the genetic codes of living organisms, providing some of the variation on which natural selection acts. Maria Vindevogel is now a member of the Belgian Chamber of Representatives.
The cosmic rays chose Maria.
People, not a particle.
No, it was the particles.
Her story is a reminder of the zillions of particles winding their way through the universe for millions or billions of years.
Fever and the
one of which
sub
might,
Yoba.
at any moment, change your life by passing through a tiny transistor and crack.
That was super interesting.
Discovering the origin
Congrats
of
to
cosmic
Maria.
rays, or where 4,096 extra votes came from, or how to protect the Mars rover from radiation requires problem solving, which is a perishable skill. And the best way to keep your problem solving skills sharp is to solve a diverse range of problems.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a
you can do
sponsor.
with the sponsor of this video, Brilliant.
Oh, that's close. That was pretty fucking wild. And it all happened because of Super Mario 64. Without Mario, cosmic rays wouldn't exist. Thanks to Prime Really Dough and the resub Mario.